Hello, good morning everybody. All right, let's do this first classroom video of how to understand the basic steps for dividing polynomials. Today is October 13th and it is 6:51 in the morning. Mr. G, hardest working man in the business right now, making videos for you guys. So this new concept of dividing polynomials is it's a little technical to understand and how to do, so I thought I'd make this video for you guys just to, show all the little steps that we need to do. So yesterday's class we talked about, we started off, what is 16 times 18? If you do the multiplication, you get 288, all right, 288. And one thing that we notice is that if you take, let's say, 288, and divided by 16, you have to get, if you do 288, you take this number, oh, you can't even really see it, oops, my bad, 288. If you take this 288 divided by this 16, it has to give you 18, yeah? And if you take this 288 and you divide it by 18, it'll give you 16, okay? This is just basic properties of division. So we also had the example of, let's say you have x is equal to 10, right? If x is equal to 10, would you agree that x plus 6 is equal to 16? Is that okay? If we have x plus 6 is equal to 16, if x is equal to 10, x plus 6 is equal to 16. And the same thing, if you have x plus 8 over here, and x is equal to 10, then you have this is equal to 18, right? And if we have 16 times 18, this 16 times this 18, well, that's the same as x plus 6 times x plus 8. Yeah? Well, let's see. 16 times 18, we already solved that. That was 288. And let's see over here. If we multiply this with FOIL, our lovely FOIL method, if we do x times x, x times 8, 6 times x, 6 times 8, what you want to do is, if you want, you could pause the video if you didn't actually multiply this out. FOIL this out, multiply it, pause the video, see what you get. Okay, let's say you paused the video or you already know what it is. The answer should be x squared plus 14x plus 48. Okay. Now, question is this equal to this when x is 10? When x equals 10? Let's see. Do you believe it should equal? Let's find out. If you have x squared plus 14x plus 48 is, let's see, you have x is equal to 10, so this is 10 squared plus 14 times 10 plus 48, and that is equal to 10 squared is, let's see, can you see this? Yeah, okay. 10 squared is 100 plus 14 times 10 is 140, plus 48 is, let's see, is this 288? That is the magic number we want to get. Let's see, 100 plus 140 is 240, right? Now we'd still take that 48, and 240 plus 48 is 288, so check. It still works. And what was the point of me showing you this? Well, let's see. The same way we have properties of multiplication, and you see this 16 times 18, and this property of division. Like if you take this number and divide it by this number, you have to get this. Yeah? If you take this, which is this, and this, you take this divided by this, you have to get this. If you take this and divide it by this, you have to get this. That is just basic properties of division. All right, and same concept belongs here. If I have x plus 6 times x plus 8, and that is equal to that x squared plus 14x plus 48, if I take this x squared plus 14x plus 48, and I divide it by, I don't know, let's say this one, this x plus 8, it has to equal what? Oh, this is terrible looking. It has to equal what? It has to equal this x plus 6. Okay? And the same thing the other way around. Like, let's say if I have x squared plus 14x plus 48 is equal to, this whole thing divided by x plus 6, right? If I take this and divide it by this, I have to get this, x plus 8. Okay? So how to do this is what we're going to practice, okay? So we're going to use long division to solve this, right? Like, let's say, for example, if you wanted to do 288 divided by 16, right? This 288 divided by 16, we know it's 18, but how did you do it before? Like, back in 4th and 5th grade, what did you do? You did, you took this 16, and what did you ask yourself? What did you ask yourself? How many times does 16 go into 2? 16 can't go into 2, so you go to the next one. How many times does 16 go into this 28? And it is 1 time. And then what do? 1 times 16 is 16. And then minus. Now you have 28 minus 16. 8 minus the 6 is 2. 2 minus the 1 is 1. And you have 12. And what was that next step you did? You brought down the 8. You remember that? You brought down the 8. And then you ask yourself, how many times does 16 go into 128? And it will be 8. If you actually do 8 times 16, you do get 128, and its remainder 0. So life is good. So this same thing that we did long division with numbers, we're going to do the same concept with the polynomials. Okay? So let's see how it works. Let's look at the first example. Oh, that's not the first example. This is the first example. All right, let's look at the first one. And what I'd like you to do is take your Cornell notes, yeah? You know, write some of this stuff down. Like, if we're going to do this question together, why don't you write it down at the same time? If you have any questions about what's happening, like, is Mr. G crazy? Why is he doing this? What does he mean when he does this? Any questions you have of whatever we do over here, write them down. Pause the video, raise your hand, say, hey, Mr. G, I don't understand this, please explain this. So the first examples will be kind of straightforward, and then the examples will get a little more difficult. So let's look at the first example. All right. We're asked to take this polynomial, 24x, let's see, okay, good. Take this polynomial, 24x plus 16, and divide it by 2. So what do? You ask yourself the same thing we asked ourselves here, right? How many times did 16 go into that 28? Well, actually, let me write it over here, so it'll be a little nicer. 16 divided by 288, right? How many times does 16 go into 28? That is what you asked yourself. So what are we going to ask ourselves now? How many times does 2 go into 24x? How many times does 2 go into 24x? And it's a little weird what it will be, but 2 goes into 24x 12x times. Now, don't freak out. I know right now you're probably thinking, Mr. G, what on earth are you talking about? That sounds very weird. But let's see something. When you ask yourself, how many times does 16 go into 28, right? What did you do? You were doing 28 divided by 16. Oh God, you can't see that. My bad. Different ink. You were asking yourself, I'll say it again. When you did 16, how many times does 16 go into 28? You were doing 28 divided by 16, right? This is 28 divided by 16, and it goes in one time. Right? It goes in one time, and it has some remainder over here, that remainder 12. Over here, the same concept holds. You're asking yourself, what is 24x divided by 2? Divided by 2. And that is equal to, this is 12x. 24 divided by 2 is 12, and the x just stays where it is. And yeah, okay. I know it sounds a little weird to say 2 goes into 24x, 12x times, but that's what it will sound like for a lot of these questions. And how can you check to see if you're good? This 12x times 2 is what? 24x, right? This, if you want to check 12x, oh, you can't see that. 12x times 2 is 24x, okay? So far so good. Now, this is good. Now, what did we do here? You see, when we had that, when 16 goes into 28 one time, what did we do? We did 1 times 16 is 16. And we're going to do the same thing here. 12x times 2 is 24x. Right? And what did we do here? Bar, bar. And what did we do here? We did minus. And we're going to do the same thing here, minus. So what was here? This is 28 minus 16. This is 2. This is 12. What about here? What is 24x minus 24x? This is just 0. Okay? And what did, once we finished this over here, what did we do? We brought down that 8, and you brought down that 8 over here, right? And what do you think we're going to do with this? We're going to bring it down, and this is 16, okay? And now, what did we do over here? We ask ourselves, how many times does 16 go into 128? And that is, it was 8 times. Here, you ask yourself, how many times does 2 go into 16? And this is positive 8 times. Okay, it's very important to have positive 8 times. Okay, because sometimes we're going to work with negatives. Okay, and the same thing we did here. We did 8 times 16. It was 128, and we subtracted it, and we get 0. The same thing holds here. 8 times 2 is 16. Subtract, and you get 0. Happy face, and we are done. Okay. And if you wanted to check to see if you were good, how can you check to see if, going back to the original question, if 24x plus 16, divide this by 2, we got 12x plus 8. How can you check? This times this has to be what? This whole thing. So this 2 times 12x plus 8 has to equal 24x plus 16. This is the rules of multiplication and division. And check, does it work? 2 times 12x is 24x, 2 times 8 is plus 16, and it is equal. Check. Okay? Now, if you feel like we're going to do these next questions over here, we're going to do these next questions over here. For some of the students who feel like they're already good and Mr. G, you're going too slow, whatever it is, what I'd like you to do is jump to these questions and just try and do these real quick. But if you feel like you still want to work on these questions, okay, we're going to work on them. All right? And yeah. So what I'd like you to do is try and do these questions here by yourself. All right? The same way we were thinking, try and do that. Why don't you pause the video and try and do this question, this question, this question, this question. This is, by the way, I wrote it really bad. This is 12x divided by, 36x squared plus 24x divided by 12x. And this is 64x to the fourth plus 32x cubed plus 24x squared divided by 8x squared. That's an 8x squared. Okay. So try and do that, and I'll just pause the video, and what I'll do is, Okay, we'll go over the questions together. And let's see. If you want to continue on to more difficult problems, let's continue on over here. Okay, how are we doing on time? 15 minutes, 12 seconds. Okay, we can do this. Now, these are the questions that are a little more, this is what I wanted to get to today, is how do we do something like this? How do we do x squared plus 9x plus 20 divided by x plus 4? So, the same way we have to ask ourselves, before, in this question, we had how many times does 2 go into 24x? Now, what you're going to ask yourself is simply how many times does x go into x squared? Okay? That's the rhythm. You take this number on the left, how can I explain it? We'll just see. Just watch for here. That's the rhythm. Take this x and ask yourself how many times does x go into x squared? Okay? And yeah. So how many times does x go into x squared? That is x. And if you ask why, remember, what is x squared divided by x? It's x. Because this x times this x is x squared. Okay? So now here, what did we do? Once we found this question here, we asked ourselves, how many times does 2 go into 24x? It was 12x. And we took that 12x and we multiplied by 2 to do this. Now, you're going to do something very similar here. You're going to ask yourself, what is x times x? Is x squared. Now we're going to do, you multiply this x to this x. Now we're going to multiply this x to this 4. So this is, what is x times 4? It is positive 4x. Okay? And then we're going to put a bar under. Now what did we do before? We had to subtract. And you're going to do the same thing here. You're going to take the whole thing, put parentheses on it, and subtract. You're going to take this x squared plus 9x minus this. Okay? So what is x squared minus x squared? That is 0. Okay? What is positive 9x minus 4x? That is 5x. Okay? That is 5x. And now this is, what do we do next? We bring down the 20. We bring down the 20. So this is, we could scratch this out. This is plus 20. Okay? Now, the same way we asked ourselves how many times does x go into x squared, we're going to ask ourselves how many times does x go into 5x? Okay? How many times does x go into 5x? And that is plus 5 times. Because 5 times x is 5x. And what do we do next? 5 times 4 is plus 20. And the same thing, what do we do? We're going to subtract. 5x minus 5x is 0. And 20 minus 20 is 0. So we just get 0. And that's it. This x squared plus 9x plus 20 divided by x plus 4 is x plus 5. And if you feel a little weird about this, rewatch the video on, I'm sorry, just go back and see it again. Because the same technique we did for this, we're going to do it for this question and this question. So let's see. Oh, if you want to check, what can you do? What is x plus 4 times x plus 5? If you do the multiplication, it will equal x squared plus 9x plus 20. And that's what we did. We took this and we divided by this. Now let's try and do this question together. What are we going to ask ourselves? Okay? What are we going to ask ourselves? Here we said, how many times does x go into x squared? The same thing. How many times x goes into x squared? And that will be x times x is x squared. And this x times this minus 6 is minus 6x. Okay? And then parentheses, parentheses. We're going to subtract. X squared minus x squared is 0. 2x, positive 2x, minus a minus 6x. Okay? So let's just write that out real quick. 2x minus a minus 6x. Okay, this is where you have to be a little careful. This is what? This is 2x minus times negative is positive, so it's positive 6x, and that is 8x. So this is 8x over here, bring down the negative 48. Now what do we ask ourselves? How many times does x go into 8x minus 48? And that is, how many times? That is plus 8 times. So here we have 8 times x is 8x, and 8 times negative 6 is minus 48. Okay, and then we subtract. And what happens here? 8x minus 8x is 0, and negative 48 minus a negative 48 is equal to negative 48 plus 48, and that is equal to 0. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is try and, how are we doing on time? 21 minutes. Okay, I realized I kind of went a little slow in the beginning, and that took a lot of time. I didn't want to spend like 30 minutes on a video, so I'm going to just cut it a little short today, and then for the next class what we'll do is we're going to learn how to do examples like this, where they're a little more complicated. Okay, just a little more complicated, but hopefully these first problems that we have been doing, they're okay. We're just kind of warming you up with dividing with polynomials. What I'd like you to do is try and do this question here, try and do this question over here, try and do this question over here, and do this one over here. And raise your hand when you are done. Remember, going back, if there are any questions that you are writing down, hopefully, just let me know. And feedback. What was I going to say? Yeah, feedback. Like, let me know, I don't know, feedback. Why don't you think to yourself, was this good? Was this okay? Was it confusing? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? This is the first time I actually had a class where literally Mr. G has been chilling and walking around. I'm guessing that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be chilling and walking around, and you guys are learning this. I mean, if it's good, then we'll just maybe just do more stuff like this, but let me know. Okay? All right. I'll see you in the class. Bye-bye.